What's up, you guys? Welcome back to episode 20 of Church. You know, I've done some creative things in my life, Warren, and I've done some like projects and other podcasts and things like that.
Yeah.
Episode 20 is significant. It's sometimes hard to get here. And I just want to say I'm thankful, grateful. Episode 20, it feels so cool to say. I can't wait for episode 120, maybe 220. Yeah. That feels ambitious, but for sure, I want to be thankful for every episode 20. Thank you to all the listeners. We appreciate you guys. We see you out there. We appreciate it a lot. Today, as I'm sure you saw on the cover, which I'm realizing we introduce every single one, but they see it. Like, you know, everybody sees it.
They know what they're getting into.
Yeah. This one's a fun one. Tattoos. So I have a ton. I love getting tattooed. I like building relationships with my tattoo artists. That's the first thing I wanted to do on the tattoos episode is shout out my two tattoo artists that really have done most of my work other than a couple of tattoos. Shout out to Shane DeRoos at Hymns and Curses Tattoos in Murfreesboro, North Carolina. Check him out. And then also Val, I call him the Tattoo God Supreme. That may be sacrilegious. I don't mean for it to be. It's just a funny name. Val, who is tattooing over at Quill and Talon Tattoo in Virginia Beach. Just check those guys out. Like, they have done a lot of the work on me personally. I have a ton of tattoos, and I think there's some cool metaphors we can extract from this episode. But also, I just want to have fun. Like, for episode 20, you and I talked about, let's just talk about something fun, maybe a little different. We've been talking about emotional and like these adjectives that you add to your life, like an honorable life, a courageous life. We talked about change, right? So like this is maybe a little more lighthearted, but I know we're going to pour some Jesus on it too. So tattoos, what do you got for us, Warren?
Oh man, tattoos. Who doesn't have one? Like, tattoos are everywhere nowadays, right? Like,
feels like that.
Obviously, tattoos and being a Christian can be controversial in some circles, in some places. I don't think it has to be. I think sometimes we put too much weight on certain things. And kind of all depends on what the tattoo kind of is and the meaning behind it. And so I think today, digging into like the meanings of tattoos, because I have a couple. Obviously Jason is more tatted up than me, right? But I have a couple, and mine have like this growing theme. I got my first tattoo at 16, and I don't think I'm done, and I'm somewhere in them 40s, So I think it's something that culturally has just evolved since I've been alive. Back in 1996, I believe I got my first tattoo. So it was not as widely accepted, especially in the Southern Baptist denomination in which I grew up in, right? So having a tattoo is kind of like that thing. It wasn't something you were supposed to do, right? It's kind of against the rules a little bit. And so the thing that kind of stuck out of my head when we, came up with this idea talking about tattoos is, number one, talking about our experience of why we got tattoos, what they mean, and kind of like how the church views it, and kind of through our lens, right? And with the help of God, kind of like how I believe God sees us, and I won't definitely give you tattoos right or wrong, right? I'm not going to tell you if you got a tattoo that you can't have a relationship with God. That is so far from the truth, right? Or if you got a tattoo, you're a bad person, right? Or that you're imperfect. I think that tattoos are a thing, right? They are a thing. They're art for some. They are they mark certain periods in your life for other people. So I think they tell the story of who you are. And so my question to you, Jason, I want to out the bat, right? Like with that introduction, out the bat, I want you to kind of unpack the idea of us being a temple, right? We're supposed to keep the temple holy, right? So what makes the temple holy in your opinion? Is it the outside of the building or the inside of the building? How do you feel about that?
For me personally, I am challenged by this a little bit because when you think about tattoos, I think there was a lot of stigma that came with it. There is a history that I both would honor and would bring light to, I think, because there's some negative history. So sailors and prisoners, right, were typically kind of the two classes people think of. And then biker gangs kind of either were built from that naval sailing culture or kind of from prison. They would stay in a gang format outside of prison. So tattoos did have a sordid past, if you will. They did create cultural challenges because it was certain people that had them. And I think some of the reason that they have, like you mentioned, everybody started having them now. One, the technology becomes better. So when tattoos start out, and this is, by the way, tattoos have I was speaking about American culture. They have an ancient history in Japan and Maori culture in Hawaii. And I'm no expert. I just want to start there. Like, I'm sure there's things I'm missing or forgetting in terms of my tattoo knowledge, but I have studied a little bit because I just enjoy it. I want to know what I'm getting into and what I may have to defend someday, as I have so many. And I think culturally for tribes and like the kind of Polynesian Hawaiian tribes, they'll get facial tattoos or arm tattoos with a lot of geometric pattern, kind of mimicking natural patterns or animal patterns, right? They'll get it as kind of a worship. So in that way, I actually feel like that may not be the healthiest version of tattooing because that might be leaning away from what God has for you. Yeah. Because I believe, and I know you believe, that no matter where you live, what era you were born in, God can speak to you. The God of Israel is the God of all of us. There is one God. And so if tattoos are placed in worship of something different, spirits or gods, or even traditions that would go against what Jesus would have for you, or if it's something to kind of I'm thinking of the word emulate a culture, or if it's something to kind of praise a culture that would be outside of something that would be healthy for us, I think it's something you at least have to give consideration to. Yeah. Do we know the spiritual significance of, like, say, koi fish or dragons as we get them? And are we honoring the visuals, which I think a lot of people are most tattooing that's happening today because that, like I mentioned before, the technology is getting better and better. People are honoring the visual creativity most of the time. I don't think, however, it's okay, or I'm not sure it's the healthiest choice to, as a Christian, get a lot of tattoos that have the Buddha in them, or yin and yang and things like that, where there is religious context and significance, where you are saying one thing and living one thing, and then your arms are displaying something different, right? It's and I equate it to wearing a T-shirt. Okay. And so, would you wear a T-shirt that has like the Buddha on it and kind of has that what coexist mentality where all religions are equal? You may not want that message sent out if you don't believe that. And so, as a Christian, I have had to give some consideration to what's the meaning of my tattoos. But just like a piece of art on the wall, if someone walks in your house, you may not always have the opportunity to describe to them the meaning. Yeah. And so you do have to think about what visual you're giving off and what kind of context you may be adding that you don't mean to. Okay. So for me, I have my whole left arm done, and I'll put that in the screen for a minute, but I have like an outer space theme where you can see upside down Marvin the Martian here. I have an astronaut under here. I have Spaceman Spiff from Calvin and Hobbes. So I came up with this outer space theme from kind of cartoons and just kind of colorful visuals, but it represents my family for me and memories that I have. So us watching Marvin the Martian on Saturday morning cartoons for my sister and I, my dad and I read in Calvin and Hobbes comics.
Okay.
And Spaceman Spiff just fits into that space theme, but it's really a reference to time spent with my dad. And then my mom worked for NASA. So we put an astronaut in there. So none of these have they don't have a religious context.
Mhm.
They don't have, I think I would say that for the most part, they're relatively wholesome. Like there's nothing that is immediately shooting out a kind of negative connotation, or I would say there's kind of things that can look visually cool or interesting, but they're giving off a message that can be challenging for people. So a lot of men will get like a naked woman, like a pinup with the, or seen a lot of skulls. You really have to be careful with skulls and things, because I know every human has a skull, and I think there's a defense for every tattoo, by the way. If you question somebody about their tattoos, there's all kinds of defense that people can put up. But the truth is it something where you're going to have to defend it against what the Bible says or what Jesus says is a good witness as a Christian? And so everybody typically references Leviticus. You asked about the body as a temple. And it's talking about marking the body. And really what the reference was historically was scarring of the body, where you would do that for religious reasons. And so the point of that was, we don't want to do anything to steer away from the God of Israel, our God, the God of the universe that created everything. The interesting thing, though, is that it also talks about not cutting your hair, shaving your beard, things like that. Like it talks about these rituals that were put in place, not eating pork. I found this out. There was a practical reason for that, right? So pork had, and what we've kind of found out now with better science, it had bacteria that you had to cook it especially hot
to kill the bacteria.
Right. And the people of that time may not have been able to get fire that hot in order to avoid those things. Now, they wouldn't have been able to understand the rationale then, but I think that's fascinating that God had put some of these rules in place, and you think it's to just, in the worst context, you would think it's to limit your joy or the fun you're having, or you just want to do what you want.
Yeah.
But God understands all of it. And so the same thing with a tattoo, you just want to choose wisely. You don't get something flippant, like don't get something that could be a negative witness. For me, it helps to have a story behind it, or at least I just thought that looked really cool. But I've told my tattoo artist over and over again, we're not getting anything sexual. We're not getting anything demonic, right? We're not getting anything that's going to hurt my witness in terms of Jesus being the Lord of my life. And so the body is a temple. I would say tattoos are important, but so is what you eat. And I would say I'm doing a better job picking out my tattoos than I am like controlling my diet, right? Or working out, right? It's also important what visual you give off in terms of haircuts and makeup and the clothing you wear, and whether it makes you treat people differently or whether you're hoping for some type of social outcome that's unhealthy. Like, I think all of these things need to be considered, but what it comes back to is, where's your heart at? Like, are you able to, I know super strong Christian men that love the Lord and their tattoos hearken to that. And I know some strong Christian men where maybe they got tattoos before they knew Jesus. And so some people will be like, well, there's some explaining to do. But I think God can renew all things. What I would say is, though, from here forward, if you're listening to this episode, be thinking about that. Like, what context are your tattoos happening in? Is it just fun art for your body? Is it something where you're trying to send a message that's unhealthy and you know it? And it can feel good at the time, but I think sin feels good at the time too. Yeah. So we just have to be careful. Something to consider. This is coming from a guy who, I did the count earlier. I have 24 individual tattoos. And I've heard this before, if you count my left arm sleeve as one. So somebody said because the color is all connected throughout, it's kind of one big tattoo. If you don't count it that way, I have 31. Wow. So I have a lot of tattoos. My left arm is a kind of cartoony outer space dedicated family message where actually these hearts right here are Bible verse, Matthew 22:37-40, where he talks about the most important commandment. On my right arm, I have all black and gray references to Jesus and the Bible. So, and then my legs are kind of covered in fun things. I've been getting tattoos. I mentioned to you the other day, I got 2 tattoos yesterday. And it was Luigi and Toad from Super Mario because my sons love that. And I have been getting a tattoo for all of my kids, which I have 8. I've been getting tattoos for their birthdays. So there's all different reasons. There's all different contexts for tattoos. I want to be clear about what I'm saying. I am not perfect, and I can't really say 100% assurance that even I have unselfishly and like carefully gotten every tattoo. And so maybe that's why I can challenge people is like really think about it. Get something that's meaningful to you that doesn't hurt your witness. I love cartoons, but I'm sure there's a context where like in cartoons, maybe they're unhealthy in some ways, or maybe, you know, like Looney Tunes is just, it's what we did. So I'm not condoning or condemning somebody who has a Looney Tunes tattoo. I have Marvin the Martian because I like Marvin the Martian.
Bugs Bunny?
Come on. Well, I haven't gotten Bugs Bunny yet. I think
my son, got the yet in there.
My son wants me to get Bugs Bunny. So my whole point is I'm doing the same thing as you. I'm talking about the reality of what I'm doing and what I've chosen to do. And the context of that is I don't want anything to steer a witness away from Jesus. In fact, the tattoos have been an awesome door opener for people where if I'm talking about Jesus and have tattoos, it prompts more questions. Or with my students, especially, they see a professor with tattoos and I talk about Jesus. They're like, you can do both. Wow, come on. And so I promise in getting tattooed like this, I'm not trying to bear false witness at all. In fact, I'm trying to lean into what Jesus has and, glorify him in what I do. I think this art that I carry on my body helps prompt conversation. So
it's good.
That's where I land. I don't know if I landed that plane cleanly or not in terms of your question,
it, man.
But
you got it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things to consider all the time about maintaining healthy relationship to your physique, the look that you're creating, and tattoos are just a part of all of that. Like, what are we representing all the time? And so it's important to consider, but no condemnation from me because nobody's perfect. And I think Jesus is the one.
There you go.
Cleans us up. So there you go.
So good, man.
That's what I got for that right now.
So good, man. I love how you kind of broke down like the theme of your arm and kind of the thought pattern behind your tattoos, right? There are amazing conversation starters. I am kind of the opposite of you. So you have like art. I have like words. Like like words are important to me. So I guess, right? So I have like words, like, and when I say words, really just names. Like I am cookie cutter, boring, vanilla tattoo.
Don't say boring. Hold on, let's back up. It's not boring. It's these are like the most important things to you.
Come on now.
If I understand where you're headed.
Yeah.
So if by the way, if they're listening, your dad,
I didn't call you guys boring.
No, he doesn't mean boring. It's just the art is gonna get kicked up a notch if I understand where we're headed next.
Yeah. So I have, let's see, somewhere around I think 12 or 10, if you count them all, like settings or whatever. And so, I have at least 7 because I got 7 kids, but I got all their names. So, and for me, the words were like important for me to have on me. And it started with my father. I lost my father early. And so when I was a little boy, they used to call my dad Sap when he used to go around his family, his brothers and sisters. And I was like, what is that? Like, why are they calling him Sap? Like, and that was his nickname.
Yeah.
Never, ever in my life would I ever get an opportunity to call him that, right? And so that was my very first tattoo. right?
Yeah.
After he passed, I got that tattoo just to kind of remember him and everything he kind of, brought to my life. And it just kind of cascaded from there. I got my first
Wait,
son's name.
I know the audience is wondering. Hold on. What did it mean?
That's just
What
a
you?
nickname. That's just
Oh, you just did. Okay. Did you ever get clarity on like what the?
no. I mean,
This is what he had.
that's just what
Okay.
his
I
nickname
dig
was
it.
Sap. So
Okay.
you
Okay.
know,
I was on the edge of my seat waiting for like the one day he like put his hand in a tree while he's playing football. So it came out with sap. I
who
don't.
knows the origin of it, right? It's
I have
just
no idea.
you
Okay.
know,
Yeah.
growing up in my family, you didn't ask questions. You just kind of just observed. That's how you learned.
Sure. I get that.
So I got my father's name and I have my 3 sons' name and my 4 girls' names all on this right arm. And then on my left arm, I have my last name down um, down my arm. Like I would forget it, right? Most people make that joke.
Like just in case it's spelled out down. Like
yeah, it's like, what? You would forget that your last name is Brown? I was like, yeah,
nah.
maybe.
I like
But for me,
this is a controversial take, right? I like the last name tattoos. Like you're honoring your family.
Yeah.
That's what. So go ahead. That's what I've thought about doing, like a back piece. And by the way, people call that corny, but I'm like, that's like wearing the jersey. Like I represent
way to think
my
about
team, right? I represent my team all the time.
That's
anyway,
a good way to think about it.
What are your thoughts on it?
So for me, I got this one at 16, the Brown, and I got it at a time where my family was like, we were really like not in a good space. It was just
Okay.
kind of a tough time, and I felt like I had to do a lot of carrying the family. And so the sentiment is that when times were tough, that I would be the man that the family need to carry the family forward. And so that's kind of the origin of that tattoo. And when I got stationed in Hawaii, because I am a sailor, sailors love tattoos, right? When I got stationed I got stationed in Hawaii, I got it redone with like Polynesian art on it. And one of the guys who did the tattoo, the one who did it for me, was a guy I worked with. His name was Tufaga. And he actually did some Polynesian art on there. And there's triangles that come off of the brown. It's like this Polynesian art. And inside the triangle, there's 3 little birds. And I asked him, like, because I gave him creativity, like, hey, make it look good. And I asked him, I was like, what do these 3 birds mean? He's like, those represent the Trinity. He's like, because you speak the word of God, so you speak for God. So I put those in there. And I always thought that was like, wow, that was a little intricate really detail, cool. Right? And so I feel like tattoos just tell the story of like where we've been and kind of where we're going. You mentioned like there are probably people who got tattoos when they were younger and they're like, man, I probably wish I hadn't got that. Well, here's some good news, right? Here's some good news. God doesn't hold your bad tattoo against you, right? And neither does your tattoo artist. They got this thing called, where they can, I mean, they're phenomenal. They'll take an old tattoo that you're embarrassed of and they'll make it into something amazing. And if you don't like that, you could just black it out, right? Just black it out.
I'm trying to imagine like somebody has like a butterfly and they just go through and put black all the way through it. So it's just like a silhouette of a butterfly.
Yeah. I seen the other day where I guess somebody got a sleeve and they didn't want the sleeve anymore. Right. So
man.
And so they completely black inked their entire arm. Right. And I guess after it healed, they went back with color ink and re-tattooed on top of the black ink. And it just was.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, what a creative idea. I was like, man, all things can be made new. So just that caveat in there. That tattoos just kind of tell a story of like where you were, what you were thinking, like, and no condemnation. Like they just, it kind of is what it is. Right. And so if you're listening to us and you're like, so are tattoos, are they sin? Are they not sin? Are they okay? I would say it's subjective to who you are, and it's subjective to how you view your body. And for me, I don't see them as sin. Like these are words that are on me are very important to the fabric of who I am and what God has brought me through. And so when I look at my tattoos, I'm also grateful for the amazing children that God has blessed me with. I'm grateful for the amazing father that God has blessed me with. And I look back, just over all my experiences and I'm like, wow, It's kind of like a timeline. And Jason, I know you're getting tattoos in relation to your children's birthdays. Like they will remember that long past your body is on the earth. You know, it's kind of the memory that you're creating in that. I think that's a beautiful thing. And so I wouldn't down or I wouldn't say that, hey, this is the standard. There's a lot of shades of gray in between there. It's kind of what you do with it will determine, like, will you honor God or will you push people away with your art and how you approach tattoos, right? And so I think the message I really want to portray to people is that don't prejudge people when you see tattoos. I think they're so widely popular now, right? But there are believers who have tattoos and who are getting tattoos, right? And there are people who are honoring God with the tattoos. Like Jason has, if we just let him talk about this arm, I mean, it'll blow your mind how it connects, how his creative mind connects to describing what they mean. And I've seen him in action explaining it to people who are baby walking with God. And he's like, hey, this is what this means. This is, I mean, and it's just a tool that is used to just share his love of God with people. Right. And so I think that in itself is awesome. Just like it can be used for so much good, and it can also be used for hate. And so you kind of have to balance those two and kind of know where you are. Right. And so, like I said earlier, if there's some work that you've got that you don't like, God doesn't hold that against you, and you can get it corrected too.
Yeah. You can get a cover up.
You can get it
There's
corrected
a lot
too.
of great cover up artists for sure.
Jason, I got a question for you though.
What's up?
So you got way more tattoos than me. So when it comes to people who have tattoos, I've heard like a whole spectrum of people, like that, from hot to cold. When it comes to the pain of the tattoo,
okay,
right? Like for you, number one, is it painful? And how do you deal with that? If it's not painful, you can't deny it's kind of annoying. I don't think I've met anybody who's like, I really like the feeling of getting a tattoo. So unpack that a little bit. Like how does, because you've got a lot. I mean, you've got some pretty sensitive spots. I think you got some work around, you know, this area is pretty sensitive. And
the elbow and
so
that kind of elbow pit area.
Is man,
wild.
just looking at that's tough. So unpack kind of like the pain part of tattoos, because it ain't, I mean, if it was easy, everybody would do it.
Right. Well, and so you asked, do I feel the pain of them? And I would answer every time. every single time. It is at the minimum uncomfortable.
Okay.
And at maximum it is torture like. Like there are moments where I know I have a good, I have a good relationship with my tattoo artists, and it does require trust in not only their art style, but they are hurting you in theory. So it's a good relationship where can you communicate and you say, hey, I need a break, or I need to pause for a minute. And also a good enough relationship, thankfully, with my two guys that I really care about dearly, is they know that they can like push through a little bit too. So if I react, for instance, yesterday I got, it's right above my left knee, the Luigi and Toad I mentioned from Super Mario. Well, I was laying on my right side and I gripped the chair a little bit that I was laying in just to help me. But my goal, now this is really interesting. For me personally, my goal is to never make a sound or never let on that I'm in pain. And it's not a tough guy thing. I promise. Okay. I know that sounds weird. To me, one, it's not going to help if I'm squirming. Like, you're getting tattooed. You knew what you were signing up for. That's kind of what's going on in my head, is like, hold on, you knew. So like, you don't now have the right to kind of have that panic, like yelp and there are moments, I'll be honest, like we're, maybe 20 minutes into a 30-minute tattoo and the needle will hit and I want to squirm. Like I want to kind of, shift your body or it's a natural kind of like, what would I call it? Like a totally autonomous reaction where my body wants to get away from this needle going into my leg or my arm. But The honest truth is, and now this might sound way too spiritual, but I try to think about this is nothing compared to the pain Jesus went through. Especially when I'm getting a tattoo that's about my faith that I know is a reference to a Bible verse that's impacted me or something, or it's something meaningful for a family member, like my tattoos mean something. It's worth sitting still for. And it's a moment of pain for a lifetime of a good story. And so, yes, is the answer to your question. Every single time.
Wow.
Tattoos are painful. It's not extreme. It's not always pain at a 10 out of 10 on the scale. But most of the time, the tattoo is somewhere between a 6 and 7. Like, it doesn't feel great. But is it worth it? For me, yes. Because it's an expression of my creativity. It's an expression of what I believe in. It's an expression of conversations I want to have with people, or just visuals that I enjoy that create a memory.
Yeah.
So yes, they're painful, but what I would say of all of my tattoos is once they are mine, quote unquote, like you get them on your body, it's different when somebody draws something. When something is now on your body, and I think of that as like, now it is a tattoo on me forever, I have very little regret. I love the tattoos.
Yeah.
As much as you can love an inanimate amount of ink in your skin. I am fascinated by the artwork of it. There's times where I like to watch my tattoo artist do it because it's just somehow watching it makes it less painful sometimes too. Like seeing the process is, oh, that's not so bad. But like when you're not watching the visual of it or you're hearing the tattoo needle, sometimes hearing it is worse than the actual tattooing.
I'm going to try that with my dentist. I'm like, can I watch you do that?
Yeah, like I'd like to see a video of what's happening. Yeah. So anyway, I think it's been really interesting to see them become more socially acceptable. So a lot of people are going through the pain of it. But again, I would point back to the technology has changed, and that's a big deal. So in Japan, when Yakuza, for instance, like mafia members would get tattooed, there would be a long wooden stick and a little mallet at the end. And the ink goes onto, I think it's like a head of 3 needles or something along those lines. It's a small number. Whereas like the needles now have many needles going in very quickly. The technology is going faster and faster, so the pain is less. The Yakuza tribe members, they dip the long stick, the tattoo artist would, in ink, and then they're basically chiseling in ink into your skin. These needles. And it takes a long time. It's hours and hours and hours. Well, as the technology gets better, if I can go through, 4 hours of not continuous pain, but like 4 hours of pain, but get a quarter of my arm tattooed, which I did with my piece with the dove and the snake right here.
Ooh.
So
painful.
For those watching visually, I have it from my wrist on my right arm to about my elbow. And it was Jesus talking to the disciples. And he said, I'm sending you out as sheep among wolves. So be as wise as serpents and as harmless as doves. And so as a reminder to me, I want to be as wise as a serpent, but as harmless as a dove. So I got them tattooed, intertwined with each other. Because you are the same person. Like the same thing is happening. And so now it's a tattoo that prompts conversation. I can bring up Jesus. But also I love it. It's visually interesting and cool. And I like the look of tattoos. I like how they represent me culturally. I like that they're visually interesting and not everybody has the same tattoos. Like it makes you unique. You are a walking art gallery, I would say. And so in that, because I love them so much, I do challenge myself to make sure I don't just get tattoos that are completely meaningless or, worst case, hurt my witness to someone. So anyway, that's the kind of answer your question. Yes, they're painful. As a follow-up, they are worth it, in my opinion.
I feel you. So, I agree with you.
What about you? I mean, you feel pain as you go through it.
I agree with you 1000%. Every tattoo I've ever gotten, when I sat down, I signed the waiver, do all that, prove the artwork, they put the stencil on you, or it's just free drawn. And when they turn it on and they first hit your skin, what hits my mind is like, why am I here again?
Yes, every time. So this is strange. I know what we're doing. I know the stencil's on. For me, it's not even the hitting the skin. It's the moment the needle turns on and you hear whir, and basically it is a dull sound, but you're like, this is kind of like a chainsaw.
Yeah.
Like he just turned on a little skin chainsaw, and now I'm about to.
It's about to go down.
It's a weird moment, but then there's something magical that happens where right afterwards, even and not to have too much information. I'm sorry if this makes anybody squeamish. But there's a little bit of blood because you're drilling into the upper layers of your skin so that the ink will stay. But that blood is trying to protect your body, and that plasma from the blood is trying to push the ink back out. So that's where you're basically making cuts in your skin. Well, even with that little bit of blood coming back out, it's just beautiful. Not the blood. I just mean to look at the visual, even when it's not fully healed. It's like, that is so cool that I can now permanently have this art on my body.
Yeah.
So it's worth it. It is painful. And here is the other caveat, I would say, in asking these questions. The usual follow-up in person is, should I get a tattoo? So would you get a tattoo if you're me? That is just like asking me, should I have kids? Because I have 8. People are like, well, do you think I should have kids? And I'm like, that's really up to you. Well, no, I would say, of course, but if you want 0, and you don't think you like children, that might not be the best optimal situation to go and have a bunch of kids. Just because somebody else does. So the same thing with tattoos. I'm going to fill up all 4 extremities, my both arms and both legs. I'm going to get an eagle across my chest after that's done. And then I might, like I said, I know some people think it's corny, but I love it. The last name across the back, the upper back like that. But after that, I don't have any plans.
You're not going to get a number?
I don't have
you get the last name and the jersey number?
Like an actual jersey on the back? No, I mean, I doubt it.
I figure you get the name and then a number and fill the number in with all kinds. Yeah. You're
trying to get me in trouble. It's like that unicorn that I want to get on my lower back and have I always joke about it. Like if you're friends with somebody, you get a unicorn on the lower back and have it shooting a rainbow off your hip, and then the other person get a unicorn facing the other way with the rainbow shooting back. So then when you stand together, it's 2 unicorns creating.
And where's this tattoo at?
Yep. No, that's what I'm saying. I don't have it. I'm not. Yeah, that's the joke. I was like, well, we got to go get our unicorn tattoos.
Oh my goodness.
So I have found that though, culturally, if you're tattooed and you're friends with people at some point and they also have tattoos, it does become like so what are we getting together?
Yeah.
Like we're sharing experience together.
Yes.
So I love that.
Yes,
I think that's
absolutely.
So cool.
My baby boy, Curtis, just turned 18. Well, no, he turned 18 in November. But that's, in celebration of him graduating from high school, he went and got matching tattoos with his mother. So,
boom.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So it's a Bible verse.
If you want that thing.
I was just like,
that's
hey,
cool.
Okay.
There you go. I dig it.
Good stuff. And he has plans to get the same tattoo I have. So the last name. So,
I actually, so this does prompt, I can't believe we're doing this on the pod. You and I have never talked about getting a shared tattoo.
We haven't.
I promise, if you're listening, we have never talked about this. And it just dawned on me, at some point, it's worth considering.
I mean, since you're going to be covered, straight up.
I was going to say, it doesn't impact me at all. So the thing is about my job, the jobs that I've had, thankfully, it hasn't mattered. Like a creative position like that, there's an assumption made that you're going to have, you're right, that you're going to have eccentric tattoos. And if I grow my hair out, which I'm doing yet again, I had it long before, we're going back. There's just an expectation that you're a little different.
Does that go with the creative mindset, the creative heart of
Yeah, and I love it. I take full advantage. Like my wedding ring that I got upgraded. Like I got the one I wanted, and for a lot of people, I think it's this would be considered too large or
I see you.
Not audacious. Maybe it would be audacious for some people. To me, it just feels like I can express my creativity, and somehow culturally, my job as being a professor of design allows that kind of freedom. And so I'll be honest, I take advantage of it, but I think I'd be that way anyway. People just might raise their eyebrow much higher if I I was more like if I was a CPA, right? So, but then again, I love those guys that kind of push the mold, that you are a CPA, but you're the cool CPA. Like, you know, you're the Fonzarelli, which is a really, really old reference, but you're the Fonz of the CPA world.
Took us all the way back, man. Took us all.
I did. I took it way. That's before my time for sure.
Took it all.
But to me, it's like, I've always told my kids, being the cool kid, and I really believe this, being the cool kid requires you not to worry about being the cool kid. Like, if you want to be somebody that has influence with people, it can't be that you're doing things to have influence with people, because at some point that energy runs out. At some point the influence fades. So Jesus was coming to change the world, but he had a lot of even enemies, because what he was doing was for the people that he cared about, but he wasn't doing it so that he would get glory necessarily.
Yeah.
It was his Father in heaven, though they are the same. I understand the challenge with that metaphor. It is his glory, but he's the only one worthy of it. So anybody else, to me, if I'm getting tattooed, it's because I want tattoos, and some people are going to be really challenged by that and not enjoy it, and some people will embrace that and want to be a part of it. But I think if you are who you would like to be, if you live out the lifestyle you'd like to live out, and you're not hurting your witness as a Christian, and you're not hurting other people, you will find that people gather around the reality that you have lived out. Like, this is me being real, right? So I don't really, maybe I did when I was younger, and that's how you learn like what you enjoy and what you don't. I no longer curate how I dress or get tattooed or how I think about things, unless it's something I'm genuinely enjoying. Like, I no longer face the challenge of, like, I'll do something even in discomfort, even like I'm talking about physical discomfort, but also maybe emotional or spiritual discomfort. I'm no longer going to do something I'm uncomfortable with to please someone else, because what you find out is maybe they're not even comfortable with it.
Yeah.
Like, they've done it because of social pressure. And so if I can encourage anyone, do not get tattooed.
Do not.
Because other people have them. Get it because it's something you want. And I tell people this all the time. Don't feel pressure to get a tattoo because I have tattoos. My kids, friends are like, oh, I could never do that. And I'm like, and you shouldn't. Like, and it doesn't make us any better or worse or different than each other. It's just, I've made a choice about the fashion that I'm going to permanently wear on my body. The only person actually that will give me input that I will listen to about tattoos is my wife.
Okay.
Because I believe when you get married, it's her body too.
It's not your body anymore.
So, yeah. And we each have a shared tattoo, which is in the other's handwriting. We have te amo, which is I love you in Spanish, with a less than 3, because we're just old enough to, instead of texting heart emojis, we send each other less than 3, you know, from the old QWERTY keyboard, multi-tap texting.
We just dated ourselves.
We did. So, but that's the only tattoo that my wife has. It's because to her that was meaningful enough, and we got it last wedding anniversary, our 14 years. We're coming up on 15. Shout out to you, babe. Thank you for the last 15 years. And that's her only tattoo, because she just doesn't feel like there isn't like this drive to go get many, many tattoos, and she's not doing it to please someone else. It was, let's do this together. Yeah. So anyway,
I think she had really the same experience I have. Like, when that needle hits, like, wow, she was like, yeah.
This again. See, hold on. This is where you're wrong. She handled it better than I did. Whoa. Like she was like, oh no, I've given birth. Like, I've given birth 7 times. So she just was like, oh, this needle, that's like, yeah, you can keep going. I'm fine. Like, and our tattoo artist who we're friends with was checking in, like, you doing okay? And she was like, oh no, yeah, what do you mean? Are you doing okay? Like, it's fine.
Women are amazing.
It's
amazing
wild.
Gifts of God. Yeah. I mean,
and then I'm sitting there sweating during the same exact tattoo, same size, same on our wrist. And I'm, you know, like closing my eyes a little bit or gritting my teeth. She's just like talking to us the whole time.
Yeah. The pain tolerance that some women have is out of control. Amazing.
I did read somewhere that women can take 9 times the I guess the pain threshold, but it's really the gravitational force so like female pilots, right? When you do the centrifugal force thing and your centrifugal force test, I guess, and you're kind of in that machine that spins you around. Men can typically go up to just about 2x, and women can get somewhere like 10. So I guess that's like a 5x difference, but they can handle this threshold of pain that's just phenomenal. And men
tap out,
actually tend to black out or tap out, or it's a wild thing. And some of that has to do with God's design of giving birth, and that's something I could never even wrap my head around.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, shout out to the women giving birth. If you've given birth, you can get a tattoo. I mean, like, the pain is what I mean. So
you can handle it.
Whether you want a tattoo or not, that's up to you. Whether it's a social thing, that's fine. But if you're like, oh, it might be too painful, if you have given birth, ladies, you'll be just fine. So, then again, I have heard from a few women, there are certain spots on the body, like those tender, like the elbow pit or, shoulder blades or kind of things like that, where they're like, you know what, I might want to give birth again. Like there's spots that are painful.
Wow.
The difference with a tattoo is in a certain spot, right? Think about it this way. A certain spot of the body, there's only but so many minutes that it can be tattooed before it's filled with ink.
Yeah.
So then it's done. It's over. It's not hours long. There's no one area of the body that takes hours and hours and hours to tattoo, because your tattoo artist is not doing the right thing if it takes that long to fill up. So
good point.
Anyways.
Good point. I love the stories behind the tattoos, which kind of brings me to this particular point, right?
Okay.
As we walk through life, and as our ultimate goal is to share the love of Jesus with a world who does not know him, right?
Amen.
And so I think often we approach sharing our faith in kind of a way that can be a way that intimidates us to do it. And sometimes just talking about our story helps people see Jesus, and then helps us talk about Jesus. And so I think tattoos can open that door to a lot of different things. And for me, I have 4 women's names I have 2 on my wrist and 2 on my forearm. And so I get asked, like if I'm wearing like a t-shirt or something, I get asked like, how do you have so many women names on your, cause it's, if someone's looking like, wait a minute, it's Dawn, Angela, and Kaylee. Most people say Kaylee, but it's Kalei, right? Or Danielle, right? And people are like, so who are these women? I'll be like, oh, they're my daughters. Like, oh yeah, 4 daughters? Like, yeah, I have 4 daughters. And I'll continue to tell them, I'll be like, and so and they're like in groups. So I have the older ones and then I have the younger ones. And when they were younger, they will both hold the side of the arm that they were tattooed on, right? Obviously.
Oh, wow.
Right. And so, and they'll be like, whoa, what? I'm like, why is that? And I'll go back to like kind of my story of like, yeah, so I was a teenager when I lost my father. So being a father is very important to me. And so every opportunity I get to spend time with my children, I do. And I'm kind of a gym guy. And so I'm always in the gym, and obviously, the famous muscles, right, require you to lift something like this, or you're looking down, or you're bench pressing. So you see these tattoos quite a bit, right? And it reminds me to, even when I want to quit the set, to keep going, because I got some little girls to protect, right? Who will eventually grow up and be women, right? And
That's
so
real.
I tie that into, being a father. I just want to be a comparable father. Like, I'll never be as good as God the Father, but there's a Father who takes care of all of us. And I'll kind of flow into that. I've used that angle of talking about tattoos to talking about Jesus just as an on-ramp. And so for me, I think that the tattoos have allowed me to open some doors. It doesn't always happen. When it does, it opens that door. And most of the time, people aren't expecting it. And they're already at ease because they know something about me. But now they know the most important thing about me, right? With my foundation and what Jesus is. And so as we talk about this subject, I'll be remiss to be like, hey, tattoos are kind of only, because I know there's some people out there doubting, like, can I get a tattoo and will God still love me? Will I still be effective? Can I go into ministry? Yes, and yes. Like, tattoos they can be, we've talked about it, they can be many different things, but they also can be windows into your life. And if Jesus is in your life, you can introduce that Jesus to people.
Yeah.
And that's the ultimate goal of our life, right? And so I know there's a lot of people out there who will give you a lot of bad reasons about tattoos. I just wanted to give you a good reason, and what it can be used for good, not just for yourself, but for other people. And so I think that piece of it, I would push people to tell your story more often, especially if God has done anything in your life and you can tie it back to the ink on your body. Like, I know Jason can.
Yeah.
He's got a whole Bible on his part of his body, right? But
We're working on
I
it.
think our story, God creates our story and us uniquely, right? We're so unique that we can use that for His glory, right? That there is a byproduct that is much greater than what we are, right? It can be used to bring people closer to Him, and so for me, that's just kind of one of the connections that I find as a benefit. Like, wow, I didn't mean for that to happen, but it just kind of happened, And I know, Jason, your tattoos really stand out because I remember, I don't even know if we were even that good of friends when I saw you at church, and I was like, man, he's got a colorful arm. Like, he's got it's like some of your stuff is like, it really pops, and I'm like, man. And then you have most people won't recognize it because we old school, but The Martian, right? It's The Martian.
Yeah, Marvin the Martian. Yeah.
It just it shows it so matches your personality. It's so not The Martian itself, but the fact that you would get something so relatable, because for our generation that's relatable. Like, who doesn't know Martian the Martian? So I think that it speaks to who you are and makes you more approachable. There's a lot of tattoos out there that make you unapproachable.
Right. And that's the challenge, right? Is are we getting something that prompts quality conversation, or it makes little children run in the other direction?
Yeah.
Like that's the reality. And I think sometimes people do get tattoos for shock value, and that's your choice. But I think at the end of the day, I don't know that that's the way God would have us honor other people with our lives in terms of like serving others. So we know Jesus. We want to bring as many people to Jesus as possible. So are they attractive, or are they distracting? Are they welcoming, or are they creating fear? Your tattoos. So it's a good conversation to have with yourself, and it's up to each person. Like, you need to be honest about what your goals are with your tattoos, all those kinds of things. And at the end of the day, you're going to do what you're going to do. And I think praying about it's always good. I think the key to all of this is the metaphor that I kind of thought of for this episode was, and I wrote this down actually, was no matter what you're doing on your physical body, we need to let God tattoo our hearts with His love.
Come on.
Because I think tattoos are beautiful. I think that they're permanent. And I think they are your own special version of expression. And so when I say let God tattoo our heart, I mean, let it be beautiful.
Let's go.
And let His love be permanent. And when you have a relationship with God, you get your own special love relationship with Jesus, with God, that is uniquely for you.
Let's go.
And God can speak directly to you. And so I think that's the most important tattoo, is God writing His name metaphorically on your heart.
Come on.
So that's the tattoos that really matter. And I think those are the ones that are important.
Yeah.
You talked about something, is it external or internal? I think the things that are beautiful and permanent in our lives are what's really important. So I'm a little atypical, by the way. I wouldn't say something like, don't judge somebody because they're tattoos. To me, if someone, I guess I would say rather, if someone's showing you who they are, believe them. So if somebody walks up and has some really challenging, negative things tattooed on them, I'm not saying avoid that person. I'm saying maybe you need to approach them with like more compassion, more love. And you don't know where they're at in their walk. That's the one challenge with the tattoo. And I think people know this, but the challenge is that it's forever. And so when you're saying something, it's like saying something forever. It's like putting on a t-shirt that you'll wear every day, like some cartoon character, that you're going to say the same thing to somebody every day. So when you get that, make sure it's a story that you want to tell every day
Yeah.
because my relationship with God is a story I want to tell every day. My relationship with my family is a story that I would be glad to tell every single day. Whether it's the tattoos on my legs for my kids, I have a couple tattoos that I got with students here at Chowan that we went and got them. And it's meaningful to us. It's not something that would be off-putting to people that I think are reasonable. Obviously, everything's going to off-put somebody at some point. Me wearing this necklace during this podcast could be off-putting to someone as like, look at that gold gaudy thing. And that's okay. And again, I'm not doing it to impress or depress anyone. I don't want to turn people away, and I don't want to gain people's favor because of what I'm wearing. I want it to be about Jesus in my life.
Yeah.
And so that's the biggest takeaways from today's episode, guys, is no matter what you do, God first.
Come on.
Then after that, choose wisely on your tattoos, but enjoy that expression of creativity. Enjoy the fact that they're yours. And I think enjoy the fact that it can be a connection with other people. It can open up doors. I am certainly going to continue getting tattoos. Like I think I mentioned that before. I'll fill up the arms and legs, go probably chest, all those things. What about you, Warren? What does your tattoo journey look like going forward?
Man, going forward, I got some work. I probably want to continue my left arm here. I think I may.
Yeah.
I mean, I may be inspired a little bit, by your sleeve there.
Who do you mean?
Huh?
Yeah. Who by who?
Might be inspired a little bit by, I think for sure we'll probably get some collaborative work,
Yeah. I would imagine.
I love the concept of real people with real problems who really love God. We established and kind of set lowercase church out there with the mission to reach people with topics that are normally not heard inside of a church, and the lowercase church really so God can be capital, and that we can be lowercase, right? And so I think we'll kind of, I think that may be probably my next piece. I think we'll come up with something that'll be probably pretty awesome. So stay tuned for that. If you listen and you watch,
that'll be like it'll be like a sub episode where it's us in the shop getting buzzed
it'll
on.
be cool. It'll be cool. So, but I'm probably gonna finish this arm off with some stuff. I have some heavy ties with the Hawaiian Islands. I lived there for a little bit under 8 years, and I feel like God's calling me to some mission work there, probably in the near future. And so that's just a place that God has put in my heart. So I think I'll have some themes from there that I may explore some tattoos there. So that's kind of my thing, kind of my flow, But it will have deep meaning for my life, and I just like you said, choose wisely, and make sure that you're honoring God, and I love that part about having God tattoo your heart, because it's permanent, and it's beautiful, and your life will never be the same. Just like if you get a tattoo, your skin will never be the same.
That's right.
Be the same.
100%.
Jason, give us one, because I know you got a lot planned. Give us one of your up and coming pieces that you have planned, and what's the significance of it?
Okay. So yesterday, after getting the tattoo, this is how I always leave Shane, my buddy in Murfreesboro.
He knows you're coming back.
Tattooed. Oh yeah, he knows. Like so he took a picture of my right arm, and in this spot here, that it's below a cross with roses that says "Be still and know," as a reference to "Be still and know that I am God." And then above, kind of the snake and dove that I showed you guys earlier. In this space, I'm gonna get a American traditional black and gray marlin to remind me to be a fisher of men. Right, and so a marlin is a really challenging fish to catch, and to me, that stood out like as cool looking. Let's be real; it's gonna look cool, but also it's one of the harder fish to catch. So I just listened to the book, The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway in the car with my wife and kids. We were just on the road. It's actually like only a 3-hour audiobook. So, but I really enjoy it. It's an interesting book, and it's really about our main character's struggle with catching this fish
Mhm.
and then kind of seeking glory, and it's all taken. I don't mean to do spoiler, but it's a very old book. So these sharks come in and kind of destroy his glory. So he's got the fish tied up to the side of his boat. It took him days and days to capture. And there's so much of the book that talks about the struggle he goes through. And then these sharks come in quickly and just destroy it. But at the very end of the book, there's a tourist that sees kind of the skeleton of the fish. And they're like, that's a massive fish. That must have been quite the journey. And so I think the point of the book is the journey that he goes on.
Mhm.
And sometimes when we seek glory, it falls apart. The truth is the joy is in the journey.
Mhm.
And so to me, being a Christian and trying to bring people to Jesus, the joy is in the fishing.
Come on.
And it can be challenging and
It's
a
good.
struggle sometimes, and that's okay. But that's the reminder for me.
That's good.
So that's what my marlin here is going to be, is like, even if it's a hard fishing journey and takes a long time, it's worth the catch,
Yeah.
even if no one else knows what you sacrificed to
That's
get it.
good.
So
Wow.
that's the next tattoo.
Wow.
Yeah, man. And I have a couple more that, just different meanings in my life. And I want to get a skateboard that's broken. And it kind of forms a heart if you take the two sides of it. Because I have a story where my cousin who passed away, he and I were skateboarding and he broke his skateboard and was like super upset about it. But then we kind of turned it into art for fun. And so it just is a good memory I had. And it's a way that I like to get memorial tattoos, like about memories or about events from my life, without putting like the date and place and initials of a person.
Yeah.
I like it to be a visual representation of just a different event.
Yeah.
So, but that's the way I do it. You do it however God tells you to do it. And yeah, I'm just thankful for the tattoo journey.
So
man.
good.
It's
man.
really cool, and I like how permanent and beautiful and unique it is.
So good.
So, Warren, my man, will you pray us out? I think it's just been so good.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Like I want to cap it off perfectly with your prayer.
Absolutely. Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you, God, for your time that you've allowed us to have. God, we humbly ask, Lord, that those who would hear this conversation, Lord, that something that we've said today, Lord, would turn their heart to you, God. Lord, if they don't know you, God, hopefully they begin to trust you and begin to follow you, God. Lord, I pray that someone who had questions about tattoos and maybe don't know the significance or were on the fence, God, Lord, that some clarity would come into their life today, Lord, either by the words that we said, Lord, by you speaking to their heart, Father. And Lord, I pray for those who may have tattoos that they no longer want, or Lord, that they regret getting, God. Remind them that you see them and you know them, and that they are not their tattoos, that they're more than just something that they no longer want, God. And I pray that you help them walk through that. And God, Lord, we just thank you for allowing us to be able to speak into people's lives. And we give you all the praise, the honor, and the glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. All right. So now that we're wrapped up, you and I got to go talk about a tattoo.
Yeah, man.
Stuff for another episode.
Yeah, man.
We'll see you.
All right, brother.